Hey guys, Pretzelman945 here. Welcome back to another video. And before we get into the video, I have a question. What makes a good first episode? To me, a good first episode is one that can probably introduce the concept and the characters and make me invested, and if possible, sort of tell its own unique story within that episode. And that is exactly what this list is going to be today. This video is my top 10 best anime first episode. So, without further ado, kicking off the list, at number 10 I have Code Geass. So, this episode is a very good first episode because I think it does a great job of immediately introducing the charm and likability of Lucia's character, given the fact that um the beginning part of the episode is well actually no, it begins with that very first bit of Luke and Suzaku as kids, which provides some intrigue. And then like the first shot after that is Luke beat high school kid beating this big rich magnate guy at a chess game. And it just does this great thing of making him instantly likable. And this is juxtaposed with from what I remember, it's been ages since I last rewatched Kogia, so I definitely might get a few details wrong here within these first episodes that I'm talking about, but um uh sorry for the pause. Did go do something real quick. Um, so this is counterimposed with juxtaposed. I mean, with the scenes of a mysterious green-haired girl who is being pursued by the military, and eventually they end up mixing, and Lelouch first gains the power of Code Geass, and in one of the probably still the coolest moments, at least in the beginning of the show for sure. Um, like Lelouch uses his Geass for the first time to command the soldier to kill himself so that Lelouch can pilot his nightmare. Um, and that is essentially the start to the series. And I think that this first episode is just a great example of a perfect introduction to the extreme likability of Lelouch's character. And number 9 is Afro Samurai, and um this does a lot of the same things, but I ranked it higher purely because Afro Samurai is only a 5 episode show. And so the first episode has a lot of groundwork because it is only one of those 5 episodes. And I think it does a fantastic job introducing the character of Afro because it starts off with the sort of backstory to how his father, the previous number one, died. Um, or I guess I should say was slain by Justice, who took that title, and then it flashes forward to Afro as an adult when he's number two. So there's an immediate understanding of his goal and his general attitude too, because he's hell bent on revenge. He doesn't take shit from anybody, as shown from the completely awesome fight scene, which the animation still looks so good for 2006, 2007, whenever this show came out. Um, and the art style is also extremely clean. Um, and you just understand perfectly everything that you need to know about Afro as a character moving forward, and therefore it makes it very easy to become invested in his journey. Well, number 8 is Doro. Now, Doro starts by having his Hyakimaru's father essentially with that his baby gets cursed by demons, which is completely insane, and then he abandons the baby, just completely lifeless corpse. Um and I believe the first episode like then flashes forward to Yakimaru um like as a teenager um where which is the age at which he is for most of the story. Um and I can't remember if he ends up fighting a demon or not in the first episode. I'm pretty sure he actually meets Doro and that dynamic is established in the first episode. Um, like considering the insane premise, I think the first episode does a great job of introducing this crazy premise and also like making Dakimaru's character immediately endearing because of the extremely tragic circumstances surrounding his birth. Um, and number 7 is Attack on Titan, and this is technically like a job that's done by the first 2 episodes realistically, which is why it's not as high. But this episode does a very good job of directly introducing the threat of the Titans because it literally starts with the colossal Titans attack on the frame. And I'm pretty sure the first episode is more sort of the normal life dynamics before the Titan attacks in Shiganshina. I can't remember if like Aaron's mom actually dies or if that's in the second episode. But, like, the immediate contrast between that opening thought and then switching back to what life was like beforehand is a geniusly done comparison that really immediately sells the threat of the Titans instantly. Um, and number 6 is Freering. Now, Freering's episode, this is where we go from like really good to fantastic level because Freerin it, the first episode here is really where we start to get into the idea of telling a whole story within a first episode. And in my opinion, if a show is able to do that, then it is like um it's probably going to have me immediately invested. And that's exactly what happens with Freering because the entire core of her character arc is established in this episode because it immediately starts after the the return of their journey. They're celebrated and then like they go and see the fireworks after and then time passes. The main time frame which is referenced like everything happens throughout the course of the show. Freeling lives her life, does her thing, she comes back. Himmel is extremely old and and he ends up dying and then there is that incredible moment where Frieren, being this normally emotionless elf, just breaks down and cries at her best friend's passing away because she feels like he did not spend enough time with him. And this episode is just fantastic because of how perfectly it sets up Frierin's entire character arc for literally the entire series. Um, and number 5 is Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood. I think that this episode um does a lot of great things with introducing the world for one. Um introducing it does a great job of also introducing the power system of alchemy as well. It's a fun introduction to Edward and Alphonse, even though they are not the core focus of the episode. Um, it does a great job sort of establishing Fuhrer Bradley's quite mysterious nature, I guess. Which creates character intrigue for later in the series. And also, I think the story of Isaac Dougal being like this former member of the military that was like scarred by the Ishval War and thus decides to take revenge on Amestris is it's fantastic, honestly. Um and I think that the combination of all of these elements, along with the fact that Isaac Dugal's story through indirect world building is very powerful, and the fact that like the significance of this is expanded upon later in the series with more information about the Ishval War is just amazing. This is a fantastic first episode, and to be honest, it was probably my favorite first episode for quite a while until I saw some of these other shows that make up the top four. And speaking of which, at number four is Devilman Crybaby. Sorry for the pause. I had to get some water. Um, and is this first episode it gets the award for the most fucking insane first episode I've ever seen. Um, and basically, Akira, the main character, ends up reuniting with his childhood friend Ryo, and they end up at an underground rave with demons. Where in the midst of all the chaos, a powerful demon named Amon fuses with Akira and thus creates the Devil Man because of Akira's pure heart. And this ridiculous combination, along with like the very subtle details that you can pick out on like a rewatch of this show, um, from the way that Rio acts to his future nature across the rest of the show is just fantastic. This is such a good first episode. Um, number three is Death Parade. And this establishes a married couple coming down an elevator into Quindecim. And um And as the episode goes on, it is revealed that their marriage they both died due to a car crash, and it was initiated by the jealous husband. And to just see the breakdown of that relationship of a marriage after death, all the while perfectly establishing what Twin Beckham is as an area and how it works in the afterlife is just incredible. Um, and this sort of structure sets the pace for a lot of the episodes of Death Parade to have really emotional and resonant stories like this, all the while featuring really cool games that determine the fate of someone. Death Parade is such a fucking peak show. If you have not seen Death Parade, fucking watch Death Parade. It's such a cool concept, and hopefully, I've sold it to you based on how high the first episode is. Um, and number two is To Your Eternity. And this first episode is literally an entire fucking journey because it talks about the narration talks about like the black one sending the orb down to the earth and eventually it becomes a rock and then it becomes the dying it, be- it reincarnates into the carcass of the wolf. And immediately, this is such a unique idea, which was just so different from any other anime I'd seen up until that point, and so I was immediately invested in this concept. And then it shows the wolf meeting its um or reuniting with its owner, I should say, who thought he was lost, thought he might have been dead, um who is like this nomad in a depressingly cold landscape that seems to go on endlessly, searching for his family. And um slowly, bit by bit throughout this episode, there are little teasers that um if his family did journey this far, then they were stopped by the weather and they all died and they were saying to turn back. And it's this brilliant juxtaposition of like what what the boy sees versus what are actually his hallucinations. And eventually he ends up getting sick and dies. And then um the wolf ends up reincarnating as the boy, creating Fushin's main form for the rest of the series. And that's where the episode ends. And it is such a masterpiece of storytelling in the course of just one episode that is one of the small highlights of the masterpiece of experiences that happens into your eternity as a show. Um, but one that does that even better than that is the number one spot, the anime which I think has the best first episode, and it's not even really close, and that is Pluto. Okay, sorry for another pause. I had to go to the bathroom time. Um, so number one is Pluto. And Pluto is the best first episode in all of anime because it is 70 minutes long. That's not the only reason. But in that 70 minutes, it does like a combination of every good thing that I talked about in every other episode on this list. It introduces a dead robot, um, a dead hero robot from a previous war. Um, and we introduce a robot investigating Geshit, who's the main character, and and much of the episode is about him, and he is trying to figure out what the mystery is and establish um and he thinks that potentially a rogue robot might have done this. Um and it creates the entire enticement for the main mystery, while at the same time, with a expert juxtaposition between the pacing of these two aspects, there is another of these famous robots, North Number Two, who arrives at a very old and blind musician's house, saying he's the new butler and stuff like that. And um without spoiling too much, there's basically an entire incredibly emotional story about the power of music. And and it is just an absolute fucking masterpiece because the connection that North Number Two and the musician, whose name I don't quite remember right now, uh the incredible connection that they build in such a short amount of time is just it's absolutely beautiful. And honestly, I think that like literally after the first episode concluded, I immediately gave it a 10 on my anime list this show. Even though it was like an 8 episode show and I had only watched the first hour long episode, I I immediately gave it a 10. That is how just fucking genius masterpiece level this first episode is. Um, but yeah, that is going to do it for this video. I highly recommend all the shows that I talked about in here because I think that they all have incredible first episodes and they all have incredible they're just all incredible animes. Um um because the number one spot, even though like FMAB, Fury Attack on Titan, Code Geass, those are higher on my personal list. Um you know, uh Pluto is my 11th favorite anime of all time, and one that I don't talk about very much. And so, definitely watch that one in particular, but watch all the animes that were on this list because they all have great to brilliant first episodes. But yeah, let me know in the comments what is your favorite first episode in an anime and what do you like about it slash what makes a great first episode for you. But for now, thank you very much for watching and I'll see you later. Bye bye.